We look at the pictures. We hear their voices, but we do not understand them. A frightening time. Repulsive.
Our products are simply stronger and safer.
And hard to understand. They had all the necessary evidence, but were still unable to draw the right conclusions. Nobody could identify the inevitable destruction of their world, but still, the people of that time seemed fully rational to us. How was this possible? How did they see themselves and their time? How is our world different from theirs?
Without at least 3,000 year perspective on your life, you're a complete idiot.
In our relational society, no one can own anyone else's work, or even their own work, as their own subject is dependent on all the others, and can therefore not exist outside of this relationship. For us, this is the norm and something completely natural. But society has not always been organized in this way.
We must always study the past. Now, I'm sure that we can understand a lot by studying this particular time.
What was the point that they found out this is not working anymore and they have to change?
It was very much based on superficial things, such as how you could convince people that something was worth a certain value, and then people would pay it, even if there was no correlation between that.
The system was the strongest in cities, which instead of bringing people together, it was more segregated them or isolated them in classes and neighborhoods.
Today, looking back, it's really difficult to understand how life was organized back then.
In the un-relational age, or capitalism, there was a division between people, maintained by segregation. Segregation between men and women, black and white, old and young, public and private, production and reproduction. Production was based on this division of people, places, and practices.
The lonely individual was emphasized, and his relation to others was described as competition instead of collaboration. It was mostly a man.
Today, our extended social network is our life basis, and it is difficult to think of a life without this community. We say, I am we. We believe there is no sustainability outside of this group.
Without our relations to others, we wouldn't be able to survive. There would be no houses, no food, no language, no culture. In the capitalistic system, competition was not only a child's game and something you learn not to do when you become older, but was seen as an essential way of organizing society. And that's what's called the market mechanism.
The basic idea was to divide people's needs from the wider contexts, and to do the same with the supply of things. These needs and supplies would meet on a market, where an efficient matchmaking would create equilibrium and harmony. Kids who can't pay can't have any apples. The more you pay, the more apples you get. This was how needs and supplies were met.
On the individual level, people were lumped together based on their attributes, not based on their mutual relations.
For example, teachers were lumped together with other teachers to create a so-called market for teachers. The idea was that the individuals would go to this market when they were in need of teaching. Then they would be able to choose between different types of teachers. The idea was also that this comparison would make the teachers compete instead of collaborate. The potential students looking for teachers were also a sort of market where teachers could look for different kinds of students. The market for students was also the place where students competed to win the best education. The idea with the competition was that the high-achieving teachers would win the high-achieving students, and vice versa. Another concept that was valued was the right to choose, and the idea that the logic of the market would make a variety of possible choices available. The system was called freedom of choice, but did in fact not give freedom of choice, as the choices were restricted to what value the individual could contribute to the market.
This paradox, the amount of choices available and the value restriction that in practice made most choices unavailable, was difficult for some people to handle. Often they tried to force their will on the situation by acts of violence. Thus the market needed armed forces to be protected from those that didn't have the means to participate.
It was all about division those days. They believed that division and alienation was something good. They worshipped alienation.
I don't think that worship
And the main character in the movies was a lonely man with poor or no contact with his network.
This must sound strange. This is why we must take it in its historical context. For this was a time when communications were not developed, when economics didn't count with time, as if there were no children or elders, and resources were seen to be unlimited. Of course, this is also why the system finally collapsed.